At first, I want to thank you for taking your Sunday to actually go through this. It's very important that as parents we continue educating ourselves, not just for the sake of ourselves, but for the sake of our kids. But taking a summer Sunday, I know is a lot to ask, and I couldn't be prouder of you for taking the time to actually be here. Now, what I will go through is what would in essence be a crash course. So there are a lot more details to how you can save for your child's future, especially in Canada. We'll talk about why you should save for your child's future. But the main reason why you need to learn this is because it could threaten your own retirement funds. So if we can get this part right using RESPs are not the be all end all, and we'll discuss where they fall short. But for most people, RESPs will get you to where your child is going to university, going to college without causing you debt or causing themselves debt. And that actually accelerates their chance of being quite successful in life. Now, if you're ready to keep on going, give me some activity in the chat and we will continue. So this is a Canadian problem. What you will realize is that the government does tax us a lot, and then they try to provide a lot of benefits. And then when they do provide the benefits, a lot of Canadians do not use them. I do not know why we find a figure like over 50% of Canadians do not use RESPs correctly, but that number carries across the board on all government services. Now, when it comes to RESPs, it is important to maximize those benefits and maximize them early so the market can help you actually save for education. Now, what you will learn today, just to level set, and I hope everybody can see my screen, we'll talk about the basics, what's eligible, what's covered, how much you can contribute, how much money the government gives you, what are the limits to those. We will go in depth on how to invest that money specifically, because you will see the gaps that Canadians fall short in and then never actually get to recover. You will also see what the tax advantages for the education savings are. You will see contribution strategies that work, things that you can use. And at the very end, we will explore how for the ultra high net worth side, they have different options that might not be as suitable for everybody else. So you should be excited to find, I will cover the whole spectrum, including income brackets from low to ultra high, situations from newborn, 18 years still to save and 5 years left. All of those will be covered today. So this is very exciting for even if you're an auntie and uncle, this you could send to your favorite niece, nephew, and let them know you're saving for their education. Now that we have set that level, let me show you why if you do this wrong, this could actually hurt your own future. Forget your child's future. I'll give an example of a client that I'm working with right now. They have 2 kids. One just finished university. And my inspiration of creating this particular crash course was inspired by their story. They have decent net worth, decent income, but they were saving in their RESPs. And when the first child started, they had about 90,000. Now the first child is finishing university and has used up all of that 90,000. And now they have to tap into their home equity to get a loan from themselves to sponsor the second child. Because you, as a parent, you don't want one child to have student loan and the other one did not have student. And the other reason why this matters is if you have the right strategy, you have enough time to save for your child and have the market help you, because you have over 10 years. The market returns will do the heavy lifting for helping you save for your child. But if you do the wrong thing, you will not access the full power of the market. The last reason why this matters is if you set the child up to graduate with no debt. Personally, I graduated with over $30,000 in debt. And I also had to go and take on another debt for my CPA to make sure that I upgrade my skills. So by the time everything was counted, I had about $60,000 of debt before I entered my career. And this would be a good time for me to introduce myself. My name is John Paul, and most of you would definitely know me. But for those who might get this recording and they do not know me, I worked for Bank of Montreal for over 12 years. I earned my CPA and I earned my investment and insurance licenses over the course of a 14-year career. I founded Pocketbook Wellness, which is who's sponsoring this today. And the philosophy behind that is that we want education first and also to get the right financial advice into the hands of Canadians at the right time. As a bonus, when this whole movement takes on, we also do want to start programs where we pay you to actually get financial literacy. We are not there yet, but if you support, we will get it. Back to RESPs. How much do you think it's going to cost a year for somebody to go through 1 year of education, 18 if they were born today. So if they were born today, 1 year of education is going to be about $46,000. I use the numbers from University of Toronto. Right now, it's about $32,800 to go through 1 year of education. So I'm not talking about the summer costs. I'm talking about the cost in between the first semester, September to December, and then the second semester from January to April. Because of 2% inflation, this is going to be about $46,000 by the time a child born this year will be going into university. Now, I'm not assuming everybody has a child born this year, but this is one way to visualize what the need for education is going to be. When you add all of this together, it adds up to over $190,000 per child. So that should be your target. And if you're looking at, am I doing something right? You should be looking at, am I doing enough right things to get to that $190,000? That should be your marker. All right. So what is an RESP? So an RESP is a registered education savings plan. It's a government program that allows money to grow without being taxed for the sake of being used for educational purposes. It provides the tax advantage of growing without being taxed. So the multiplication or the compounding works faster because the part of the taxation they would have taken stays with you until your child uses it. Now, when your child uses it, it is actually an income to them. They get taxed from that income, but usually they don't make a lot of money and they have tax credit. So it ends up become a very tax advantaged for them as well. And the contributions can be made or can be the accounts can be open for any child under 18, and the contribution has to stop by 31. The main features and benefits is the tax deferred growth. This is very important because the biggest thing that's going to help you in life saving for your child is that compound interest you find in the market. So getting that right will make sure that you have a child going into life without the burden of debt. They also have a grant program. This is the federal program. There are some provincial programs. The CESG, Canada Education Savings Grant, helps you with about $500 for every $2,500 you put in, so that it encourages you to max out how much you can contribute. The lifetime limits, you can contribute up to $50,000 maximum. This means if day one of your child being born, you put $50,000 in, you're not allowed to put any more money, and that can grow on a tax deferred basis. Now, if you do a lump sum, you will not get the matching every year, the $500. This is for annual contribution. The government puts that grant in to help with the behavior, not to match the funds per se. So put a pin on that $50,000 lifetime contribution, because if you were to say for a second, think as an ultra high net worth person, that $50,000 as a limit becomes very limiting. And forgive me for the pun. I really did not intend to have the pun in there, but it is very limiting for somebody who wants to help their child. Let's say go to John Hopkins where the tuition's $400,000, or go to other institutions that might be of higher stature or just more exclusive. So you can see why they might need different solutions. So at the very end, we'll go through whatever the other solutions that they might have to achieve this tax deferred growth. And yes, they will not participate in the government matching because the government matching only exists on RESPs. The other key features is you have 35-year eligibility. Like I mentioned, 50,000 lifetime cap. All the grants, we'll talk about the bond as well. In addition to the grant, there's a bond. And if your child does not, talk to you nicely, does not want to go to university, or a combination of this or the other, you can move your 50,000 that you contributed back into your retirement savings without any taxation. That is not to say the growth that you have achieved in your RESP will not be taxed. Oh no, we'll talk about that. Is a very important tax implication that you will learn today. So this is how the program has performed. By the numbers, Canadians are underperforming the opportunity by 70% of Canadians are underperforming the opportunity. First withdrawal usually starts, and what we see on average, people have about 10K, and 10K, considering that tuition and board right now is about 33,000. People are unprepared to even fund the first year. And if you think about how well the market has been performing, that is just a travesty. And you will see that the government actually, if you are in a certain bracket of income, the government will do the contribution for you based on the bond. All right, so these are the costs that are allowed when you have a RESP. You can withdraw from an RESP form for tuition. You can withdraw for residence or housing costs during study. It's very important. If they go and live in Monaco for the summer, Monaco is not covered. Food, meal plans, or survival expenses, books and supplies as needed, but usually they don't challenge them. Let's say, for example, if you need a calculator, but you buy a second calculator, they're not going to come in and say, hey, you only needed one. They're not that specific, but those are the costs that are covered. Everything else has to be justified. A car, for example, did you need it? Did you not need it? There's no tribunal where you go through for this, but should there be excess abuse, you can get reviewed. Now, what you want to ask is, okay, so if I say for my child and my child decides to go into, UK has talent, wins UK has talent, decides not to go to university, what happens to my contributions? So the first 50,000, what you contributed is returned to you. The bonds and the grants are returned to the government. The growth that the market gave you is taxed an additional 20%. And when it's taxed at 20%, that means it goes to your income and your income gets taxed too. That's just an addition. So that is very important to make sure that even when you're funding it, you're not overfunding it. Let's say if you have a beautiful investment that has reached 190,000 and you know that's what you're going to need 18 years from now, then you can stop the contributions to make sure that you're not overfunding the RESP. So there are two types of RESPs. There's a family RESP and an individual RESP. Family RESP, you can add siblings, cousins, a lot of people. And this is good because if some decide not to go to university and some decide to go to university, you will have a good mix where somebody will always be able to use the money. The other good thing about that is you will actually have a higher limit because it's 50,000 per child. So you will be able to put down more money and have the market compounding help you with saving more money. The individual RESP is very restrictive. This is ideal for families with one child and planning to have only one child. It lacks some flexibility. So that one is, whenever you're choosing it, it's usually to match the fact that you've decided to have one child. These are the details on the free money available, the grants. So they are provincial grants and then they are federal grants. These are federal grants. The Canada Education Savings Grant, so the average family receives 1,000 annually, which means the average family has like a participation of, I'm trying to do the math in my head. Anyway, if you contribute 2,500, you get 500 per year. So if an average family is getting 1,000, it means an average family has about 2 kids. So that's the annual max, 500, and it's scaled depending on how much you are actually contributing. The lifetime amount they can contribute is 7,200. Once you reach that limit, they are no longer going to give you the RESP. Different provinces have their own ways of encouraging their people as well. Quebec matches up to 250 per year. BC gives you a one-time 1,200 grant. Saskatchewan's benefits are a little bit more complicated, so they're beyond the scope of this particular text. Now, let's talk about the bond. The bond, unlike the grant, the bond is for families that need additional help. Maybe they have more kids compared to income, or they are on the lower income side. So they don't need to contribute to get the bond. But 40% of people who are eligible do not actually use this. Similar to what we saw that 70% of Canadians are not effective with RESPs. If you take this recording and you keep it close to you and you do everything that we talk about today, you will be in the top part of what the group of people that are using Canadian government support for education. So it's up to $2,000. The Canada Learning Bond is for lower income families. There are some breakdowns on what the thresholds are. Like if you have one to three children and you make 63,000 and less, and these ones are CPI index, so they keep going up. You may want to check as time goes. You will be eligible to get the bond. That's the government helping you save and keep your child out of position of debt. So now the money has gone into the account. First of all, when you open an RESP, any bank can open an RESP for you. Most financial institutions can. And inside the RESP account, when you put money in, most people think they've already done the investment. When we see that the final number for the first withdrawal is 10K, it's people missing the opportunity to actually do investments because they think when they put money in the RESP, they have invested. However, that's not the case at all. The RESP is like a bucket, similar to your TFSA and your RRSP. Inside that bucket, you can put different investments. You can put GICs, these are guaranteed certificates of return. They will give you 5-6%. You have to remember the inflation is 2%. So the lower your return, the lower the higher the inflation is eating into that return. You can go into mutual funds, which can give you some access to investments, but they have some fees as well for the professional management. You can go into low cost exchange traded funds, which give you the same return return, but they are not professionally managed. You can go into index funds, which are not shown here. What you need to do is make sure that you're on top of what's inside your RESP. I will give you an example of a client that I'm working with now. Not on the RESP side, even though we did the RESP side. They had RDSPs. These RDSPs are similar to how the government helps you save for retirement. People with disabilities get some help from the government. These RESPs were up to 70,000 and they were all in cash. They had them for 10 years and they did not invest in the market at all. So even this 3 to 5%, they did not get that. Now you're going to be smarter than that because you're here. It's important to select the right thing for your child. And because you have time, you can take some more risk in the market to make sure that you achieve the numbers that are required. As I mentioned, about 190,000. The contribution strategy that works, this is the only one that works. It's just automating. Just automate it. If you do $200 a month, you get to $2,400 a month. You will have almost maxed out your Canada Education Savings Grant. But if you cannot do $200 a month, do the best you can. Start now. And then once you have started contributing, you have steady payments, you can do once off. You can do birthdays. You can do, rich auntie comes to visit and wants to do something for their niece and nephew, lump sum contribution. Okay. You keep it on top of mind. And then you make sure that you manage it, that it's investing in something. I'll talk about the investment part and I will impress on you how important it is. And then once you start to see where the savings are versus how close they are to university, you can start making adjustments depending on what's needed. Like I mentioned earlier, if you have achieved that 190,000 already, then you can stop funding the RESP because overfunding it will come with taxation later on. All right, so we're going to do an experiment of what it looks like for 3 families taking 3 different approaches for their RESPs. I picked a number that is going to be familiar to you, say 3,000, because 2,500 from you and 500 from the government. This is the example of contributing about 200,000 a month into the RESP. If you take the approach of going to the bank and asking them what you can do inside your RESP, they will likely recommend the RBC Balanced. And the reason why I chose RBC Balanced is because RBC Balanced is the most popular investment in Canada. It's the biggest mutual fund there is. And even though it's better than cash, it is still going to result in your child 18 years from now having a $33,000 debt. I need you to understand the difference between that and if you were to, say, go to Wealth Simple and choose this VFV stands for just the S&P 500. This is just a typical American market fund. If you do the same investment, not adding any more money, and you just if you go to RBC and you get a balanced fund, you will have your child, 20 years from now have a $30,000 deficit. If you just go to get some investment confidence, you go to Wealth Simple, do the same contribution, you will be fully funded. This one, the last one, is one of the sophisticated products that in the market. I put this here just for comparison. This, I would not recommend that you go look into this. This is a more sophisticated investment idea. But what I want you to understand is just going to your bank is not enough. You have to be invested in the right thing. And the right thing sometimes as simple as buying an S&P 500 fund and making sure all those investments are going in and not cash. As I mentioned before, the target for you right now should be 190,000. Right now, the cost is 33,000, but it's not going to be for much longer. So if you took those 2 approaches for you to actually meet the requirement, if you go to RBC and you insist, okay, I just want to do RBC, I don't want to do anything else, you need to contribute $459 a month from now until your child is 18 to make sure you have enough. If you just buy S&P 500, you need to do 219. And remember, 200, that's about the right amount of money to actually maximize the Canada Education Savings Grant. And obviously, the more sophisticated investors that can get bigger returns would only need about 100, 120. If you're interested in that, you can reach out to me after the presentation. I can talk to you about that. It's not for everyone, but I want to impress it on you that it will cost you 2 times the contributions if you just say my bank did my RESP for me, and it might even result in your child having some debt at the end. So if you wanted to do a one-time deposit, to just deposit once and be done with it at birth, in those 3 scenarios, how much would you need? With the RBC approach, you would need 59,000, which is not allowed because 50,000 is the limit. And by the way, RBC is better better than cash because cash does not grow. So if you did just one lump sum one time, you would need 59,000. And for an S&P 500 type fund, you would need about 18,000 deposited when they are born, and that's all you need to do. And the other more sophisticated option is just about 10,000. Now, assuming your child is not being born today, shocker, not all the kids who are born today waiting for the RESP presentation. This is how much you would need. If your child is 1 year away from university today, you would need to have about 125, 110 to 125 to fund them all through the next 4 years. Now, if your child is 5 years away from university, you should have about 96,000 if your strategy is with the bank. If your strategy is with the market, you should have about 82,000. And if your strategy is more sophisticated, you should have 67,000. If you're 10 years away from university, your child right now is seven and under, you should be around 63 if you're using the banks. If you're using that self-investment with the S&P 500, you should be around 38,000. And of course, the more sophisticated one, much, much less. Now, when you're thinking about what your child might achieve as they go through life, it doesn't end with just a 4-year degree. There are other things that the child can get into that RESPs will not be able to cover. And this includes if they want to be a medical doctor, if they want to go into law, go into dentistry, or some other higher order professions that require more education. There's a very good chance that the RESPs will not cover that part. So I'm going to pause here for a second and give you a chance to catch your breath. If you have any questions, add them to the chat and I will be glad to answer them. Do we have any questions? Okay, it seems no one has questions. Either you're listening very well and I'm explaining really, really well, or the opposite. Okay, so if you have a higher net worth, what are you supposed to do? I will show you some options on higher net worth families that are more specific for them and would solve the problem or the limitations have for RESPs. So these are the limitations that make higher net worth people a little bit more upset because the 50,000 lifetime limit might be too low. The annual CESG contribution of 500 might not be a good enough incentive, and they are taxed very heavily if they overdo the contribution or the return. They get charged 20% more on growing the money too good or overfunding it. So where traditional RESPs fall short is they lack flexibility. They're not tax efficient enough for high income earners, and the opportunity costs ends up becoming a cost at the end if you've been contributing to a RESP and then your child decides to go to a fancy university in Singapore and you are unable to use it. You have to take that money out and get taxed on it. So the alternative that high income families have is using something called wealth funds. So this is a hybrid product. It's a tax deferred investment while it's also an insurance policy all in one. There are no contribution limits, of course, and it also helps with legacy planning or future planning. When your child is finished their education, they will want to go and buy their house, and we're talking down payments. They might want to take a year off to travel, and this wealth fund alternative, at least from what I've observed, they use it for each and everything. They would take money out for taking that gap year to go travel, and once they come back, they can take out money for the down payment. And because you take it out on somebody who's like really, really young, the costs are quite reasonable. There's also always the choice of if you have a business and you have benefits on the business on education benefits, maybe you can get your kids to benefit from those, but not as straightforward as the wealth funds. And that is all I had for you. My final advice, if you took out this Sunday to educate yourself and make sure that for your future generations the success continues, I would urge you to do this. These 3 things. Start early, as in start yesterday if you can, and choose your growth very wisely. Do not just let the bank get you in whatever is popular. So educate yourself to make sure that you're getting the right return from the market. And always review and check the plan every 2 or 3 years, because if you are doing very, very well, you might need to slow down on the payments to make sure you're not overfunding it. If you're not doing as well, you need to increase the contributions, being mindful of the limit to a point where you're confident that your child can go through through university without issue. Yes, so I'll take some questions. And if there are no questions, then I'll give you some of your time back. Yeah, I've got a chat feature. You can use it. So one of the popular questions that part of the FAQs that you see on RESPs. Most people do not know where saving for their child fits into saving for their retirement. If you determine you're going to help your child with their education savings, that and your retirement need to be planned simultaneously. One cannot be at the expense of the other, because eventually, if you focus on your retirement and ignore the education savings, you will have to disrupt your retirement planning to help your child with education savings. Both of them have to go together. Yeah, should you need to reach me, my email is jpnyereka, Pocketbook Wellness. I'm John Paul Nyereka, and this was the presentation I had for you. Hopefully we have some educated children to continue paying our taxes. Thank you so much, Lilybird. Lilybird says this was great. You guys have been awesome. I'm so happy that you took some time out of your day. John sent some hearts, and I truly appreciate it. All right, enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.